यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from first canto, 10th chapter, 28th verse. 10th chapter, which is entitled Departure of Lord Krishna for Dwaraka. Verse number 28. Nūnaṁ vrata-snāna-hutādineśvaraḥ samarcito hi asya gṛhīta-pāṇibhiḥ pibanti yah sakhy adhara-amṛtam muhur vraja-striyaḥ sammumuhur yad-āśayāḥ nūnaṁ vrata-snāna-hutādineśvaraḥ samarcito hi asya gṛhīta-pāṇibhiḥ pibanti yah sakhy adharāmṛtam muhur vraja-striyaḥ sammumuhur yat-āśayāḥ. Any two devotees? Nūnaṁ vrata-snāna-hutādineśvaraḥ samarcito hi asya gṛhīta-pāṇibhiḥ pibanti yah sakhy adharāmṛtam muhur vraja-striyaḥ sammumuhur yad-āśayāḥ. Nūnaṁ vrata-snāna-hutādineśvaraḥ Word-to-word meaning, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nūnaṁ, certainly in the previous birth. Vrata, vow. Snāna, bath. Huta, sacrifice in the fire. Ādinā, by all these. īśvaraḥ, the personality of Godhead. Samarcitaḥ, perfectly worshipped. He, certainly. Asya, his. gṛhīta-pāṇibhiḥ, by the married wives. Pibanti, relishes. Yah, those who. Sakhi, O friend. Adhara-amṛtam, the nectar from his lips. Muhuḥ, again and again. Vraja-striyaḥ, The damsels of Vrajabhūmi. Sammumuhur often fainted. Yad-āśayāḥ, expecting to be favored in that way. Translation: O friends, just think of his wives whose hands he has accepted. How they must have undergone vows, baths, fire sacrifices, and perfect worship of the Lord of the universe to constantly relish now the nectar from his lips by kissing. The damsels of Vrajabhūmi would often faint just by expecting such favors. Purport: religious rites prescribed in the scriptures are meant to purify the mundane qualities of the conditioned souls to enable them to be gradually promoted to the stage of rendering transcendental service unto the Supreme Lord. Attainment of this stage of pure spiritual life is the highest perfection, and this stage is called Swarupa, or the factual identity of the living being. Liberation means renovation of the stage of Swarupa. In that perfect stage of Swarupa, the living being is established in 5 phases of loving service, one of which is the stage of Madhurya Ras, or the phases or the humor of conjugal love. The Lord is always perfect in himself, and thus he has no hankering for himself. He, however, becomes a master, a friend, a son, or a husband to fulfill the intense love of the devotee concerned. Herein, 2 classes of devotees of the Lord are mentioned in the stage of conjugal love. One is Swakhiya and the other is Parakhiya. Both of them are in conjugal love with the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. The queens at Dwarka were Swakhiya, or duly married wives, but the damsels of Vraja were young friends of the Lord while he was unmarried. The Lord stayed at Vrindavan till the age of 16, and his friendly relations with the neighboring girls were in terms of Parakhiya. These girls, as well as the queens, underwent severe penances by taking vows, bathing, and offering sacrifices in the fire, as prescribed in the scriptures. The rites, as they are not an end in themselves, nor are fruit of action, culture of knowledge, or perfection in mystic powers ends in themselves. They are all means to attain to the highest stage of perfection, to render constitutional transcendental service to the Lord. Each and every living being has his individual position in one of the above mentioned 5 different kinds of reciprocating means with the Lord. And in one's pure spiritual form of Swarupa, the relation becomes manifest without mundane affinity. The kissing of the Lord, either by his wives or his young girlfriends who aspire to have the Lord as their fiancé, is not of any mundane perverted quality. Had such things been mundane, a liberated soul like Shukadev Goswami would not have taken the trouble to relish them. Nor would Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have been inclined to participate in those subjects after renouncing worldly life. The stage is earned after many lives of penance. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratushe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Te Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindurba Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So first of all, I would like to seek blessings of all the assembled Vaishnavas who have come here today for today's Srimad Bhagavatam discussion. I seek blessings from all the devotees that whatever I speak in the right mood, in the right spirit, for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, for the pleasure of all the assembled Vaishnavas, and most importantly, for my own purification of heart. So this is a particular verse which yesterday I realized the gravity of the subject topic that is being discussed here. If I knew before, if this was the verse assigned, I would have never voluntarily taken this verse for myself. But I realized it was too late to assign it to someone else. Then I had to, kind of render the service. So, this is a very beautiful section in the Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein the ladies of Hastinapur are glorifying Krishna. So there are the series of verses which are being described are in such choicest poetry. They are glorifying the Supreme Lord, and in this particular verse, they are specifically describing about the Dwarkavasis, the wives of Krishna in Dwarka, and specifically they are describing about the Vrajagopis. So today, Srila Prabhupada makes very important statements in this particular purport, which I have taken as guidelines in order to prepare this particular Srimad Bhagavatam class. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is such a literature. It is in the Bhagavatam. It is said, pibanti ye Bhagavata atmanah satam katha-amṛtam shravana poteshu samvritam punanti te vishaya vidhushitashayam vrajanti tat charana saroru hantikam. When we drink the Srimad Bhagavatam, by submissively hearing and by great wonderful Vaishnavas, then what happens? What are the two benefits of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam? Punanti te vishaya vidhushitashayam. What is the meaning of that? It purifies the contaminated aim of life. And the second benefit of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam is vrajanti tat charane saroru hantikam. One attains the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. That is the benefit. Every day when we come and assemble ourselves to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, we should understand these are the two benefits that we gain by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And in this Srimad Bhagavatam, today we are discussing about this particular verse, wherein the wives of Krishna in Dwaraka and the Vrindavan and the Vrajagopis are being discussed about. So every living entity, is a part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna himself in the Bhagavad-Gita says, Mamai amsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. Every living entity is my part and parcel. Everyone is my part and parcel. And therefore, the relationship with the Supreme Lord is eternal. But unfortunately, when we come to this world, taking up a material body, we start identifying with the relationships of this world. But as soon as this material body gets over, the relationship of this world also ends. That is the fact of life. But we should understand one fact, that our relationship with Krishna is eternal. The 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 living entity is eternal, Krishna is eternal, and the bhakti that is performed for Krishna is also eternal. That is Bhagavan, Bhakta, and Bhakti will always remain eternal. And that love for Krishna also is eternal. But it is the process of bhakti yoga which helps us to awaken that love for Krishna. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoy Shravana Adi Shuddha Chitta Koraya Udoy. Only when we reawaken that love by performing the ninefold process of devotional service, as very beautifully described by Prahlad Maharaj, then we can awaken that love for Krishna. But what is our unfortunate situation? We are covered due to due to material illusion. Identifying with the relationships of this world, identifying with the false object, with the temporary objects of this world, and as a result, we get trapped. And therefore, bhakti yoga is that ways and means to reawaken the love for Krishna. But when one's love for Krishna is not covered by any form of illusion, the nourishment and the pure happiness that the living entity derives from loving and serving Krishna is beyond the imagination of the ordinary mortal, is beyond our imagination. And of all those who love Krishna, it is said that the residents of Vrindavan love Krishna the most. But even amongst the residents of Vrindavan, the gopis of Vrindavan, the Vraj gopis of Vrindavan are worshipped are most, because the Vraj gopis, they have no interest for themselves. All they think of is the pleasure of Shri Krishna, and that is what is the sole objective of their life. And their love is characterized, Srila Prabhupada in one purport he writes, their love is characterized by three qualities: selflessness, service attitude, and remembrance of their beloved. That is the Supreme Lord. And this pure love, to a certain extent, we can see this even in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada very often gives the example of the relationship between mother and child. We can see as soon as a child is born, mother bestows so much of love. When the child cries in the night, the mother does not say, "Oh, this child is troubling me so much. No, he is such a nuisance. He cries and he disturbs my sleep." But the mother is ready to get up even in the midst of the night to tend to the crying child. But unfortunately, even due to changing circumstances, as the child grows, that love also slackens. Then what to talk about other relationships of this world? That there is nothing to speak of it. So therefore, the exchanges of love in this mortal world is very often temporary, and it is volatile. That is what we need to understand. But on contrast, the love on the spiritual platform is eternal. So this is something which we need to understand. Srila Prabhupada writes very beautiful statement. When activities are enacted on the platform of personal sense gratification, then that is called material activities. But when activities are enacted on the spiritual platform, in order to please the Supreme Lord, then they are specifically termed as spiritual activities. Srila Prabhupada gives a very beautiful example in this regard of the servant and master. So Srila Prabhupada says that till the time the servant is not given payment, he will not serve their master. What does this indicate? This indicates that there is no genuine service attitude towards the master. But when the living entity performs service for Krishna with a genuine desire to please Krishna, without any expectation of any kind of remuneration or any kind of payment, then that is pure, selfless, uninterrupted, unmotivated love that one has. So Prabhupada gives a very, very beautiful example. And the gopis of Vrindavan exemplify such pure love in pure Krishna consciousness. That is why we are seeing in this verse that here the ladies of Hastinapura saying, what austerities they must have undergone, what tapasya, what penance they must have done to achieve such a position. And their position is because of the pure bhajan that they have done in so many lifetimes. Of course, they are after all the eternal associates of the Lord, but this is the selfless service that the Vraj Gopis, the Dwarka, the wives of Krishna in Dwarka have. And therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there comes, where how the gopis of Vrindavan, they are in constant remembrance of Krishna. Yado hanena vahanane mathano palepa prenkhenk narva rudito ksanamarjanado gayanti chaina manu rakta diyoshuru kanthyo dhanya vraja-striyaḥ urukramma chittayanaha. Oh, the Mathura Vasis are praising. Who are these gopis of Vrindavan? While doing any household activity, while they are milking the cows, while they are churning butter, while they are, cleaning their household, they're doing their normal household chores, or whether they're tending to their children. Gayanti chaina manu rakta diyoshuru kanthya. They are constantly, their throats are emitting the glories of Krishna, the beautiful pastimes of Krishna. Aha, Danya. How fortunate they are. Dhanya vraja-striyaḥ urukramma chittayanaha. Their chitta is pervaded with that remembrance of Krishna. So that is the position of, the gopis of Vrindavan. These gopis of Vrindavan, they are not Kshatriyas, or they are not born in Brahmana families. They are just belonging to the cowherd community. But Srila Prabhupada writes, their exemplary devotion that these devotees have exhibited, towards Krishna, that Krishna himself is so much indebted. Na pareyam. Krishna himself is saying that love, just be simply satisfied with the love that you have for me. That is your only compensation. There is nothing in this world that I myself can give you. This is the gratitude that Krishna has for the gopis of Vrindavan. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he makes this particular statement, in the purport, that this particular statement he makes is that, I'm just looking for that statement, where each and every living being has his individual position in one of the above mentioned five kinds of reciprocating means with the Lord. And in one's pure spiritual form of Swarupa, the relation becomes manifested without mundane affinity. So therefore, these exchanges that we are reading in this verse, any common man may misunderstand this. Oh, is Krishna some playboy? Is Krishna some lusty person, who is having 16,108 wives? On top of that, before that, he's had so many affairs with the residents of Vrindavan, especially the gopis. One can misunderstand all this. And therefore, I would like to, as a part of this class, try to emphasize on the fact, and from a tattva point of view, how this seemingly apparently bewildering activities is actually, it is a pure exchange of love between God and his part and parcels, between God and his energies. That is what we need to understand. And the rasa dance, specifically, that will be a topic of discussion today. You must be thinking, what am I going to tell you about rasa leela and rasa dance? Am I going to tell you some madhurya, conjugal love pastimes? No, that is not the intention of today's class. But the intention is, to convince our minds and to convince and refute people, who come to us and tell us, oh, your Krishna, he is some lusty boy who is chasing after the girls in Vrindavan and he marries 16,108 wives. So whenever we are faced with this kind of argument, we should be equipped with the weapon of knowledge to be able to counter argue them. So therefore, that is the safest, I felt, that for myself and for the audience also, if we discuss this, then we can refute when we face such arguments. So therefore, the rasa dance, which is the pinnacle, which is the highest spiritual uncommon pastime that Krishna performs with the Vraj Gopis, it is a pure exchange of love between Krishna and his energies. When the mortal being, they see God as ordinary and consider him one amongst themselves, and they tend to misunderstand his divine activities. Krishna lifted the Govardhan. He killed so many demons. Beautiful pastimes. But this pastime of the rasa dance is something which is commonly misunderstood. Even to that extent, when Srila Prabhupada was in Madras, and one person who was hosting Prabhupada, Mr. Ballu, this pastime comes in Prabhupada Leela. He's saying, Prabhupada, can you please tell me about the rasa dance? My wife and I are very eager to hear about the Ras Leela. Prabhupada said this Ras Leela is only for those who are bereft of the contamination of attachment to wife, children and home. They were householders. Mr. Ballu said, no. Prabhupada ji, please, my wife and I are very eager. We are also devotees of Krishna. Please don't think us to be any less. Prabhupada tried to once again explain to them. But when once again the request came, Prabhupada said, see, you may be qualified to hear about the activities of Krishna in the rasa dance, but I am not qualified to speak them. So therefore, even Srila Prabhupada was very, very specific. These subject matters, he would not discuss them openly. To that extent, Srila Prabhupada made a policy for Back to Godhead publication. He said, Prabhupada made a policy to this extent it is followed, that no independent articles or no independent photos without any context should be published in the Back to Godhead. Because Back to Godhead magazine is a public magazine. And very often, as with the conditioned soul, they will misunderstand these pastimes of Krishna. So therefore, Prabhupada also, in order to protect us, he was very, very careful. Once, Srila Prabhupada was talking to his disciples. And Prabhupada was, Rameshwar Maharaj was there and Prabhupada was there. And Prabhupada told Rameshwar Maharaj that in the 1930, when I was going to America to preach, the Sahajiyas, they were discouraging me that, Swamiji, why are you going to America and preaching? Why don't you do your bhajan here? Why don't you just be in the bhav of the gopis? But Prabhupada said, this is not what my spiritual master instructed me. A very beautiful conversation that takes place, that Prabhupada is saying, these people, they don't believe in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These Sahajiyas in Vrindavan, they have no knowledge. They are Prakriti Sahajiyas. They think they have so much fondness for Krishna's pastimes in the conjugal love because they are attracted to sex. Prabhupada was very, very blunt. But why is that they have no attraction to any other Leela of the Lord? Why specifically the rasa dance? So Rameshwar Swami Maharaj, tells Prabhupada, they don't want to be limited. They understand that, Krishna is the Supreme Personality. Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam. Prabhupada said, that's good. That's no problem. But what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad-Gita? Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita, out of many millions of people, only one achieves perfection. And out of that person who achieves perfection, only one can understand him in truth. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatiti siddhaye. So Prabhupada quotes this verse and says, what do these people think? Just by some 1-2 years of practice, they think they can understand Krishna. It takes millions and millions of lifetimes in tapasya and penance to be able to understand the Supreme Lord. But these people, what do they think? Just some 2 years of some kind of haphazard practice, they have understood Krishna. If that is so, why are they not attracted to the Kurukshetra Leela? That is also very divine. That is also on the absolute plane. Why are they not attracted to Krishna killing Putana? Why are they not attracted to Krishna dancing on the heads of Kaliya? That is also pastimes on the absolute plane. So Prabhupada is very, very heavy. And therefore Prabhupada then emphasizes on this fact. In order to be able to reach the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, our acharyas have prescribed to go through the first 9 cantos. Only when you have understood the first 9 cantos thoroughly, only when you have gone through, have understood the conclusions and have understood Krishna's greatness, only then you will understand Krishna's sweetness when he performs such beautiful pastimes with the gopis of Vrindavan. So Prabhupada was very, very emphatic about it. So This is what that is, that we need to understand. And so Srila Prabhupada also states in the Srimad Bhagavatam that therefore we need to be very, very careful as to how to approach this pastime. That's why in the Srimad Bhagavatam, a lot of description is given about the Ras Leela, where the Ras Leela is an uncommon spiritual pastime which takes place in the autumn season. On the full moon night, where Krishna is playing on his flute and he's attracting all the Vraj gopis. And what do the Vrajvasis do? They leave everything. They have no concern. They have no concern about their reputation. They have no concern about about their relatives. They have no concern about the safe comforts of their home. But what do they do? Just they immediately come. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, in a very beautiful lecture, he says these sentiments of the gopis of Vrindavan is on the basis of philosophy. It's not that it is pure sentimental love. But when Krishna calls them, and even Krishna, it is not good for girls of your age to be able to be wandering in the forest alone. Why don't you go back to your homes? But then their emotions and their sentiments towards Krishna is on a very pure spiritual platform. They say, Krishna, you are our Lord. You are Paramatma. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And not only that, the attraction that we have for our family members, our wives, our children, and all our husbands, that attraction is coming from where? Ultimately, you are Krishna. You are the source of all attractiveness. And that whatever divine qualities or whatever attraction that they have in their heart ultimately comes from you. So you see, their love for Krishna is not on a sentimental, emotional platform, but it is on the platform of pure tattva. They have a philosophical basis for it. So this is what Maharaj emphasizes this on. And therefore, Krishna, the gopis of Vrindavan, they saw everything not different from Krishna. Their love for their family members, their love for their children, their husbands, their in-laws, whatever it may be. Oh, that love, ultimately, who is that source of love? That source of love is Krishna. A very important lesson we learn in our lives, dear devotees. Unfortunately, due to our conditioned state, we see our vision is always in separation from the Supreme Lord. This is called pritak drishti. Pritak drishti means seeing everything in separation of the Supreme Lord. Something which is different from the Supreme Lord. But the pure devotees of Krishna see everything in relation with the Supreme Lord. Once Srila Prabhupada was walking with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Prabhupada happened to see it was a icy winter cold morning, and everything was filled with ice. And Prabhupada, what did he do? He took his cane and he pierced the ground. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj was thinking, what is Srila Prabhupada doing? Prabhupada did it 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, and ultimately Tamal Krishna Maharaj was bewildered. He said, what is happening here? Let me ask Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, what are you doing, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, what is this ice? This ice is Maya. This ice is Maya. And our natural constitutional position is to love and serve Krishna. In a very similar manner, this water, its natural position is to be liquid, but now it is hard. But as soon as we apply heat, the ice melts and it regains its natural constitutional position of liquidity. In a very similar manner, when we apply the Mahamantra, when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the heart is cleansed and the disciple once again revives his natural state of loving and serving Krishna. And that is the duty of the spiritual master, to once again revive that pure love that the living entity has for Krishna. So there also Prabhupada could see Guru Tattva there. Prabhupada could see, everything in relation with Krishna. Now Prabhupada was, sitting in the airport, And one of his disciple happened to see a beautiful air hostess. And Prabhupada was here, and she was seeing that air hostess, and finally he saw Prabhupada. And he was like totally shocked. Prabhupada was practically watching him and seeing him. So Prabhupada said, just imagine, if the creator of this person, if the creation is so beautiful, then you can imagine how beautiful the creator is. So you can see, Prabhupada saw the pure devotees of Krishna say everything in relation with Krishna. But unfortunately, what is our vision? Our vision is that we see everything separate from Krishna. So therefore, even in Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna, talks about what are the three qualities of being dೃಢ vrata bhajan. Yesham to antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvanda moha nirmukta. What is the last line? Yes. So the three qualifications is Yesham tva antagatam papam. What are the three? When can one do dೃಢ bhajan? Is when one is freed from all sins. Yesham tva antagatam papam. Then janana punya karmanam. He must have done so much of great piety. And third one is he is free from this mentality of seeing everything different from Krishna. Te dvandva moha nirmukta. He is mukta of what? Seeing everything in duality. So in order to be able to do dೃಢ vrata bhajan, that is the qualification. And therefore, the gopis of Vrindavan, they were freed from this particular thing. And the acharyas also, give one reason in various purports. I was reading different purports, of Srila Prabhupada, and in various purports, Prabhupada has released, nectar as to how to make us understand the philosophy as to how this particular activity that we see in this verse is not mundane. So first of all, with respect to the rasa dance, the acharyas say, my dear living entity, understand what was first argument that they give is what is Krishna's age. At the time when Krishna performed this beautiful, uncommon spiritual pastime, Krishna's age was only 8 years old. He was only 8 years old. And the acharyas say, for lust to be manifested, in a very external and gross form, it normally happens at a much later stage. And Krishna at that point of time was only 8 years old. How can you expect lust to manifest in such a prominent manner at that age? That is one argument they give. Another argument that they give is, who is Krishna? Krishna is Bhagavan. Krishna is to Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is Aishwaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasya Shriya Jnana Vairagya. He is filled with all 6 opulences. What does he need? No, and even the acharyas say, Krishna is unagitated in the presence of the opposite sex. He is unagitated. In the next chapter of the Bhagavatam, it is very beautifully mentioned. Uddhama bhava pishu namalla valguhasa vridava loka nihato madhanopi yasam samhuya chapam pramado tamasta yasyendriyanam vimahitum kuhakerna shekuhu. What does it mean? Uddhama bhava pishu namalla valguhasa. The Dwarkavasi, the queens of Dwarka, with their exciting sporting smiles, their glances can attract the heart of any living entity. But even Cupid, Madhanopi Yasam, throws his bow in frustration, thinking that I am not able to pierce the heart of Krishna. Why? Yasyendriyanam vimahitum kuhakerna shekhu. Why did Cupid throw his bow in frustration? Because Krishna is such a person that he cannot get agitated. Kuhake vimahitum means he is undisturbed. Kuhakerna sheku, not able to disturb that Supreme Lord. So that is what is Krishna. In the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Kapila Muni says, Tat shrishta shrishteshu konu akhandita deepuman. Only it is Nar Narayan Rishi, who is none other than Krishna himself, none other than the incarnation of the Supreme Lord. He does not get agitated. When Indra once upon a time he became very insecure. Indra is always a personality in Bhagavatam who is always insecure. And he comes to Naranaran Rishi, thinking that he will take my position, my post of Indra. So therefore, let me send him some celestial beings in the form of Apsaras. Naranaran looks at Indra and tells, "You fool! Rather, I will give you something more extraordinary than what you are giving me. I will give you Urvashi." And therefore, Urvashi is a gift by Naranaran Rishi to Indra. So, so we understand what is Krishna's position. Krishna is unagitated. And therefore, who are the gopis? The gopis are transcendental expansion of Krishna's pleasure potency. Srila Prabhupada in this regard, he gives a very beautiful example. He said it is just like a child who is playing with his own reflection. In a very similar manner, Krishna is playing with his own reflection, is playing with his own Swarupa Shakti. He is dancing with his own Swarupa Shakti, who are his past part and parcels. And another argument that they give, if Krishna, what to talk about, if Krishna was a lusty person, then great devotees like Haridas Thakur and Arjuna, they could very easily resist the temptations of Maya. When Urvashi approached Arjuna and when Maya Devi approached Haridas Thakur, they were totally absorbed in their Krishna bhajan, that they were totally unaffected by the moves and the temptations and the allurements that they were faced. This is another argument that they give. Then why would great personalities in the renounced order talk about these activities if they were mundane? One example of that of Shukdev Goswami. Shaunaka Adi Rishi says Shukdev Goswami is Atmaram. How? He is indifferent to the worldly activities, but that same Shukdev Goswami, he describes the Rasa Panchadhyay, the Ras Leela. So that means that it sends a very important message to all of us. What about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was such a strict sannyasi. He followed all the regulations so strictly. But that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he meets Ramanand Rai, they have the most esoteric discussion, which is not in the purview of our discussion today, but that is the exchange. Mahaprabhu, the most renowned renunciate, why would we discuss about such subject matters? So our acharyas give one argument of the other. And finally, who is the testimony of that pure love? The testimony of that pure love is Uddhava. Krishna, when he is in Mathura, Krishna at that point of time is in Dwarka, and the Vrajavasis are feeling intense separation from Krishna. And Krishna, in order to pacify them, whom does he send? He sends his exalted minister, Uddhava. And Uddhava, when he goes to Vrindavan, he is practically shocked. He is bewildered. Who are these gopis? They have so much of love for Krishna. That love is the highest love. And therefore, in the praise of the gopis of Vrindavan, he composes such beautiful verses, which is worth mentioning here. He says, Etah param tanubrito bhuvi gopa vadvo. Out of all the women on this earth, bhuvi etah param. Who are param? Gopa vadvo. The gopis of Vrindavan are, why are they so superior? Govinda eva nikhil atmani rudha bhavehi. Their devotion is one pointed only towards Govinda. Govinda eva nikhil atmani. That Govinda who is the super soul of everyone. Rudha bhavehi. And they have so much unalloyed devotion for Krishna. And then at this point of time, Uddhava is praying. What is he saying? Vanchanti, I desire. What do you desire? Vanchanti yad bhavabiyo munayo vayamcha. That devotion, that even those people who are fearful of material existence, those great sages and our humble self, I desire that kind of love. That the gopis, Kim Brahma Janma Bir Ananta Katha Rasasya. When you hear the beautiful pastimes of Krishna, then what is the use of taking birth of that of Brahma and that of that in a family of high Brahmanas? So this is what is Uddhava is saying. And Uddhava, after establishing the superiority of the gopis of Vrindavan, he is saying, all that I want is the dust of their lotus feet. Asam charana renu jusham aham syam. All that I want is the dust of their lotus feet. But at this point of time, Uddhava, what is he thinking? No, the gopis of Vrindavan, they are so humble. They will not give me the dust of their lotus feet. So therefore, my desire is only that I become a plant in Vrindavan. I just become a plant in Vrindavan. Kim Vrindavan gulma lataushadinam. Just a lata. That is, I'm happy with that. Even in another prayer, Brahmaji is praying, I want to reside as as the mountains in Gokul, so that I get the dust of the lotus feet. But the acharyas say the prayer of Uddhava is the most exalted. Why? Because they desire for service. Uddhava is desiring for service in the bhav of the gopis of Vrindavan. This is what is Uddhava, the testimony. He was a witness of that pure love that the gopis of Vrindavan had for Krishna. This is what. So therefore, that's why acharyas say it is a service attitude of Uddhava that is most glorified here. Many acharyas have, many great personalities have glorified the gopis. But in this instant, acharyas say the prayers of Uddhava are the most greatest. Why? Because of the service attitude. So therefore, a very important lesson that we learn is, is that Uddhava is being glorified, that he is desiring the service attitude that the gopis of Vrindavan have for Krishna. And that is what we do every day. Is it not? Every day, why do we chant Hare Krishna? My dear Lord, please give me service. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Krishna, oh Mother Hara, please give me service. But what happens when service comes? Prabhu, I think, am I the only person in the 7.7 billion population of this earth that you have found only me? Many a times that is our, I'm talking about myself at least. But this is what we are actually praying for every single day when we are chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So therefore, this service attitude is something what we need to learn from Uddhava, and that is what he is praying. And that is what we also pray. Ei neve dhana dharo sakhiranu gata karo, seva adi kara diye karo nija dasi. That is what not we sing in Tulsi Aarti every day? Ei neve dhana dharo. I am requesting for what? Seva adi kara diye karo nija dasi. Give me an opportunity to serve in the footsteps of the gopis. And that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he worships the gopis. Ramya kacha dupasana vrajavadhu vargena cha kalpita. He is saying, I know the gopis of Vrindavan, they are the most worshipable, and therefore we should be following in their footsteps. So therefore we should understand the greatness. Who are these gopis of Vrindavan who are exchanging pure transcendental love with Krishna? They are not some ordinary mundane girls of this world, but they are the expansions of Krishna who have pure, unadulterated, unmotivated, unselfish love for Krishna. These are the gopis of Vrindavan. So therefore, when we understand that, then we can look this verse in the proper perspective. Otherwise, we can only judge. Our senses are contaminated. Our senses are polluted. So therefore, we need to understand the tattva, and that is why Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj, what does he write in the Chaitanya Charitamrita? Siddhanta balya kare na kore alas. Iha haite Krishna lagi sudrida manas. We should not be lazy in understanding the philosophical truths behind these pastimes. Because when we understand philosophy, then our mind will become strengthened. So therefore, the entire discussion was to understand the proper perspective and the proper mood when the ladies of Hastinapur are quoting such verses. So just a summary of what we saw today. So today we saw how the living entity is a part and parcel of Krishna, and how the love that the living entity has for Krishna is eternal. We also discussed how the gopis of Vrindavan saw nothing in separation from Krishna, but unfortunately we see everything indifferent from Krishna, and how the pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, they see everything in relation with Krishna. Then we discussed various points, as to how the acharyas presented that the pastime of the rasa dance is something which is purely spiritual. We discussed various reasons, and then finally we spoke about the testimony, who is the witness of that pure love that the gopis had for Krishna, and we discussed specifically about Uddhava. And therefore, when we understand this verse in the proper perspective, then we can, not misunderstand, and we can refute the many a times when we go for book distribution, we are refuted, we are argued, your Krishna is such a lusty person. But then these are the arguments we can give then. So thank you very much. It was okay. Personally, probably the time is up. So personally, any of you all have any questions? You can, personally, we will surely discuss, and we will discuss about it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo.